Muito boa tarde.
Good afternoon. It's almost good evening. I'd like to greet Paulo Portas, Chairman or President of this Congress, Mr. Carabusa, President of APDC, and thank all of you for taking part in this conference, be it in person or at a distance. And I'd like to thank APDC for what they've done for so many years in organizing this conference too. By definition, the government and the Prime Minister and the President would not be in agreement, but in this case it's true. The President of the Republic and myself are in agreement after having spoken to the Minister of Infrastructures and the Secretary of State for Digitalization. It's a good situation. But I won't be adding much new to all the words that have been uttered in the last 2 days. Obviously, we are all aware that the digital tradition is one of the major challenges we have ahead of us, and one that the government has identified in its program, together with climate change and the demographic problem and the fight against inequality. And the challenges of climate change, together with that of the digital transition, were chosen by the European Union as the two major drivers for the economic recovery of Europe in this decade. And so that's why we have addressed digital transition at the core of our concerns in the government, because it is cross-cutting to all the activities of the government, either regarding the administration and hence the Secretary of State of Digitalization, but also to all the activities of our society and the economy too. Therefore, I believe that this attitude of the government is responding to the importance of this topic for our governmental actions. As we know, since 2020, we have an action plan for the digital transition, an action plan with multiple actions, infrastructures, and the added values that this brings for our country. The first aspect I'd like to highlight is that which has to do with reskilling, upskilling. We have an important advantage, and that is that Portugal is, within the European Union, one of the countries with the largest number of engineers per capita, only surpassed by Germany and Austria. And this translates into the country's capacity to have the necessary critical mass of talent to face this challenge. But the challenge is one that is demultiplied. It creates opportunities on the one hand to reskill, to reorientate professions for people that have other kinds of education that are not employable, and also to meet the new needs and demands of the market in terms of technology. Hence the success of programs such as Upskill that has been referred to oftentimes, enabling such upskilling and reskilling towards the technology for people coming from other areas. We have to also bear in mind the efforts in this transition of not leaving anyone behind. One of the great risks of disruption in our society that becomes manifest in a very clear manner, already visible in the climate transition, because the risk is that it also happens with the digital transformation. And the major risk for democratic societies today in social disruption are these transitions that cannot be postponed, but they should not create a fragmentation that would block the future. When we decided to shut down the coal power plants. This did not mean this. Well, we did reduce CO2 emissions by 17%, but on the other hand, we ceased to have many jobs, and these people would need to have a new job. Otherwise, this would create social tension, which is very serious. We have to bear in mind what happened in France, with similar steps having been taken, and we'll understand this difficulty. I draw your attention to the fact that the impact that we can have on the automotive industry with this double effect of both transitions is something that is very difficult to anticipate now, but that must be anticipated. And that's why the Portuguese state has asked the ILO for a specific study of the impact of the automotive industry in terms of digital transition and energy transition. The study is about to be concluded, and we'll have to follow it to guarantee social cohesion during this transition. This has been a core topic of the Portuguese presidency, and on the 7th, it was a year after we had the social summit in Porto, with many heads of states and government and the social partners in Europe to sign the Porto Commitment and the need to reinforce the social pillar, the social rights in the European Union, as an essential condition for us to be able to accelerate these two transitions, without which Europe will lose its opportunities for the future. But we have to progress together, and that's why it's so important to have a good baseline and to reinforce the recovery and resilience program, to invest in the STEAM areas in further education, as well as in upskilling. The world of academia has to become digital, and to train 800 workers in the next 4 years with a view to readapt them, to reskill them for the new digital tasks that will have to be their new jobs. So reskilling and upskilling is a core issue that is also affecting other areas, such as what Mr. Carapuço also mentioned, the ENG initiative that aims to provide the country with the necessary human resources to be able to transform and have fluidity in our coding languages as we have in spoken foreign languages. We also have to be fluent in the computer languages of the future, which are the languages of skilling. We also have to make a great effort regarding infrastructures. Engineer Carapuça also said the country has to make a great effort, operators have to make a great effort to meet this very demanding calendar in terms of developing the 5G network, and to do so in a way that also reinforces territorial cohesion. The aim is that by the end of 2023, the so-called white areas or white zones may also be covered. At least 75% of the population in low-density rural areas and also in the islands to be also covered by the 5G network. This is essential for territorial cohesion and also essential to create new job opportunities, new opportunities for business, and harmonious development for the country. It's a demanding effort, but it must be made, and soon. We start from a position in which since 2020 we are already above the European average in terms of access to broadband. A large percentage of the population has broadband access above the European average, but as we know, the European average is not static. So either we continue to invest or else we shall lag behind. And we cannot. We have to go ahead, the way forward, and continue with this investment effort. Another dimension that is essential to invest on in infrastructures has to do with the connection via undersea cable to ensure the continuity of something that is of a state, of a country that is discontinuous in geographical terms. So by connecting the continent to the islands of Azores and Madeira is something that is being now implemented, and this will then be supplemented with a regional ring to ensure the connection between all the islands of the Azores, because they also require a reinforcement in such connections. There's an important opportunity that we have, and that's the country will have financial resources in the coming years provided by the European Union as never before, with very specific obligations for a significant part of such budgetary items to be precisely invested on the digital transition. There are opportunities opened up by Portugal 2030, but not only with the Programme for Resilience and Recovery. We have a total of 2.7 billion euros allocated exclusively to the digital transition. And this is an effort that is directed to the entire society. It's directed to the businesses. It's directed to the public administrations. Public administrations are very relevant in particular because this provides a great opportunity to transform all the engineering of procedures in the administration itself. As the Member of Parliament, Manuel Marques, used to say, digitalizing the public administration cannot just be digitalizing bureaucracy and public administration. It has to be a way to open up the opportunity to have the capacity to proceed to re-engineer procedures. And now the digitalization of public administration is more than it was 20 years ago, that replacing typewriters for computer keyboards. It's much more than just interconnecting with fiber optics. It's the opportunity to mobilize that which the digital has brought us, the new techniques, technologies, sciences, new resources, artificial intelligence, blockchain, in order that we have a proper public administration that is one of the 21st century that will serve the future of the people of Portugal. It's an opportunity that we have ahead of us and an opportunity to go forward. And not only for public administration, it has to be a great opportunity as well to support the economy and businesses in order that they may make the transition to the Business 4.0 program. We have more than 600 million euros allocated from the RRP. And I call your attention because I see that some people are not paying much attention, that between April and May, there will be 4 very important tenders, all of which are addressed to the private sector. We have a tender that for the national network of test beds to create and reinforce the development and use of prototypes for projects that can be scaled up.
Accelerators of digital trade, through digital commerce, digitalization through e-commerce, and finally, the digital innovation hubs, which are 4 major programs that will be, whose tenders will be opened between April, May, and June. So in this, the way we have to look at the opportunities opened by digital technology, one has got to do with the declaration, the assertion of our technological position. Since we joined the European Union, we've seen ourselves as a periphery vis-à-vis the centre, which geographically, or at least economically, would be Germany. And this was in relation to many activities and penalised us in many areas, industrial areas, that is. But the truth is that digital transition reconfigures our geography greatly, because the geography of digital places us always in the centre, as long as we manage to get the activities that have got to do with the digital world here. So our geographic situation, which allowed us to open new worlds through the sea, means that through the sea there will be we are a natural point of an intensive network of cables of new generation cables, which places us once again as the interface between Europe and the rest of the world. The first example was the scenes of the Dweller link, the cable between Europe and South America. In Zimbabwe, there will be the ENG inaugurated, linking South Africa to Europe, and the cable to Africa, which will make the connection from Portugal to 3 different continents. Now, this confluence of cables in Portugal is an extraordinary opportunity for the location in our country of a number of activities which this interconnectivity allows. When the Dweller link was finished, an investment of a data center was announced, which is the biggest investment made in our country since the investment of Alta Europa some decades ago. So this shows what is the economic potential that this new digital era places the country in, again, in terms of centrality, global centrality. And this is an opportunity we have to take advantage of, failing which we will just be a point of settling a cable and the activities will go somewhere else. This is not what we want. This is the ambition that we have, is that here is where these added value will be generated. For this purpose, it is very important to have a friendly policy, corporate-friendly policy, and we can accept the entrepreneurship and startups. All major companies sometimes once a startup, and not always. Not all startups become great companies. So thanks to national talent and the training of the new generations, we have had success in the development of the new startups when, in comparison with most European countries. So very few, in such a short period of time, can say that they have the 7 unicorns which were developed in Portugal in such a short period of time. But at the same time, we don't want to be a kind of unicorn zoo. We want to be a vibrant ecosystem which creates conditions so that we can create startups. And so this is fundamental to meet the needs highlighted by Engineer José Carapuça, is to get the talent that we have been creating to stay here. And the minimum that we can do because of the effort that the youth has done in recent the effort made by the youth in recent decades is to create the opportunity for the most accomplished generation ever to stay here in our countries. So this we have to create conditions for this in the labour market, but through the support to entrepreneurship. And that is why the state budget for 2022, or for what rest of 2022, which is in discussion in the Parliament, has two important measures. One, which was referred by engineer Rogério Carapuça, which has got to do with the tax treatment of stock options. Now, this is fundamental for a company that is starting up and that can pay salaries that are competitive with what the market offers abroad for highly qualified staff, but it's an opportunity for remuneration if it's got the appropriate tax net framework can be attractive, as has been for many places in the world, to keep the talent here and to develop the companies, and who knows, maybe some of them may be new unicorns in the future. But there's another dimension of the greatest importance, which has got to do with the need for the economic valorization of what is created by our scientific and technological system. Here, the state budget for this year, which I hope will be approved in the Parliament, will allow an exemption of 35% of the royalties paid by patents that are registered and developed in Portugal, which is not the most competitive regime. It will be one of the most competitive regimes in Europe, in Europe, sorry. And so it will help the talent to stay here. And so I said that the companies have a role to play in the dissemination of the opportunities that the tax system offers today for talent to stay and for talent of young generations. And so it's only 1,000 people today have used the ERS Jovem mechanism. It's incredible. But this year, the budget will make this automatic, access to this automatic. And so with the ERS Jovem, it means that in the first 2 years of the activities chosen by the youth after the conclusion of their education or training, that today we'll have an exemption, and then the third and fourth year another exemption, and then the fifth year there will still have another but smaller exemption, and so there will be a significant improvement of the available income so that the career can be developed in the company, and will give the opportunity for companies can raise their salaries because they will only be competitive in the sales of their services and products if they are competitive in the contracting in a global market for a generation which is the most internationalized generation because of Erasmus, because it competed with Erasmus, because it doesn't do Interrail because they're now low cost and speak language and don't look for jobs just in Portugal. And we have to make sure that they stay in Portugal and they can realize a future. For these two tax measures are very important for the effort that we have to make and understand that this digital transition also puts us in the production cycle on a global level, on the value chains globally. And so the pandemic, the COVID pandemic gave a new opportunity to the reindustrialization of Europe in general and Portugal in particular, because of its geographic position and because of the fact that we still have a great deal of know-how that most of Europe has already lost and that we can do and will no longer be done in other places in the world, or can only be done in other places in the world, and we have to do this in Europe. But in addition to this industrialization, today there's a range of services, a great range of services that have been choosing Portugal to settle, and they generate jobs and skilled jobs, and they position us in the value chain of the automotive industry. And so our position was of the greatest importance years ago, because we are the great competitors of China in the production of molds, fundamental molds for the production of parts. And ensure the automobiles will continue to need parts and molds to make the parts. But the bad news is the electric vehicle is going to have fewer parts than the traditional combustion vehicles, and so we are going to have fewer parts to produce and fewer molds to produce them. Secondly, from molds we went to the production of components. There's no vehicle in circulation in Europe, at least, that doesn't have at least one part produced in our country. We're going to have few parts to produce. In Portugal, we have vehicle production units. Alta Europa is the best known, the most famous, but it's not the only one. So the production of important components have a factor that increases production in Portugal, and so in the recent years we've started to attract to Portugal a new type of activity linked to the industrial that hasn't had the capacity to come to Portugal. It's not so industrial, it's more services, but basically it's what makes the link to the digital economy. That is the fleet management systems, the software, the vehicle systems, and the technological development of all vehicles. Just to give you an example, the project, the BMW project, with critical software, generated up to now 1,500 highly qualified jobs. And this means that we have an extraordinary opportunity to reposition ourselves in the value chains in industries that are known as traditional, and to try and improve the quality of what we already have, but also the new segments of a higher added value, which is the essential condition to be able to have a more competitive economy that generates more and better employment and contributes to the prosperity of the country and the sustainability of our country, of our economy. Now, at the time that the country managed to leave the COVID crisis and now already recovering the income, the revenue that we had in 2019, with an employment level superior that we had in 2019, the income level that we had in 2019, and despite the crisis, it increased in 2020, 2021. But regardless of the uncertainty that the war in Europe brings, the fact is that we still have our industrial fabric intact and our human resources preserved and ready to work.
And with a macroeconomic framework that is stable and continues to inspire trust in international markets. And therefore, this will position us, given our geographical distance to the conflict areas, in the right circumstance to continue to attract foreign direct investment, to be a factor for trust, to continue to establish new levels of investment at the national level, and also to create new jobs. There is an indicator that is core to me, and Engineer Karapusan as well as a member of the committee to accompany the Resilience and Recovery Program. Perhaps the most interesting program of the entire RRP is that of the mobilizer agendas. When it was designed, there were many doubts and uncertainties, so many uncertainties, but at the time they just wanted to include in the RRP some 900 million euros, despite which there was the providence of making the opportunity to mobilize a further 2.3 billion euros in loans. And since in June there's going to be a tender with candidacies with a deadline in September, and the tender will oblige to, for once and for all, do what we insist is necessary to be done, and that is to bring a dialogue between the scientific world and the world of business. At the time, 66 consortia were established for bringing together more than 1,000 entities among large and middle-sized companies and the world of academia to submit a set of projects with a total investment of 10 billion euros. In this second stage, and after having had mergers between projects and more maturity regarding the effective value of the investment for each project, the truth is that we still have 64 consortia with an investment of 8.8 billion euros. And the good news is that the jury will study the merit of the propositions, the viability, the executability within the tight deadlines, because everything has to be prepared by December of 2026. But together with the reinforced payback, with some more million euros received to reinforce the recovery and resilience plan, and the budgetary items for loans, and the initial allocation, and bearing in mind the typology and diversity of all the support we can provide, we can be assured that if we are fortunate to see all the projects being merit-worthy and executable and viable, there will be resources to fund as to the maximum that the aid allows for all these investment projects that will bring a huge transformation to our economy. And the truth is that there is no one of them that does not include a strong digital component. Some of them are purely digital. Others have digital as the indispensable tool or element for them to be effectively implemented. Therefore, I wanted to say, to conclude, that I believe that APDC in the next few years will surely have more congresses and conferences to follow up this process of transformation, which is a process of transformation that has to mobilize all of us and that cannot leave anyone behind. I think this is our joint commitment to one another, and a commitment that will certainly help us overcome this challenge. Thank you very much, and congratulations. So with the closing remarks of the Prime Minister, we reach the end of this conference that has proven to be once again the largest technology congress in Portugal. 2 days of a marathon with many ideas that were expressed and underlined, but two basic ideas. Portugal has good businesses, good ideas, and especially a lot of talent. So we believe that in a year's time we shall have an even better conference with more ideas, and certainly this will be the truth. So all that which has been said in the last 2 days, and it's a lot of information, if you will, you may consult it whenever you want, through the platform of APDC. There have been many topics discussed, many interesting topics, from cybersecurity to metaverse, and of course 5G that is now in Portugal. It's been a pleasure, and just to underline that we have beaten the record of audience via the internet, and this is good. So thank you for all of you who have joined us either in person or from home. And thank you to APDC for this structure. This has been a very good conference, and I feel very proud. And congratulations to all the people who have made this possible. Thank you very much, and see you next year.